Welcome to the Gals Guide to the Galaxy podcast, where a group of gals gather for you one cool thing around our topic of the month. Is it ancient history? Is it breaking news? Is it safe for work? Well, that's up to each gal. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome back. I'm Josh, and it's Women's History Month at Gals Guide. I'm joined by Bonnie, Katie, and Leah, talking about our one cool thing. I already talked about Lisa Meitner, and Bonnie already talked about women's suffrage heroes. But before we dive back in, let's get to know something random about our gal pals. So here's my question to everybody. What's one place, women's history related, that you would like to visit before you die? Kind of a bucket list kind of thing.
I want to go to in California, there's a women's history museum.
That was the one I was thinking of, and I couldn't remember the name of it.
It's something like that.
It's like the National...
It's like California Women's History
It probably
Museum,
is the National California History
I follow them on Instagram, and they got some really cool stuff.
Oh, they had a whole Rosie the Riveter thing, didn't they?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Do they? Okay.
Like, I haven't quite even, like, I'm trying to look at their pictures. I'm like, how big is this place?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That
That looks really cool.
looks very cool.
They like my posts every once in a while.
Do they really? Oh, look at you. Well, who doesn't like your post? And if there's somebody out there who's just like, oh, wait, I haven't liked Bonnie's post yet, you know what? Get on it, because they're beautiful and gorgeous and they're original artworks of women's history. So get on. Crap. I have to think of mine now. No, well, because I was thinking about that one, and it was mostly because we do a lot of driving ones. So ones that are close by, it's like, all right, no, we're totally going to hit those. But like the California one kind of felt like a little bit more out of reach. Like there has to be a plane involved to like do that one. And if the plane goes over the water, I was talking about earlier on a break, I don't like it when planes go over water. So apparently I'm seeing everything in the continuous United States.
Contiguous.
I say it wrong every single time. That's totally fine.
I mean, it continues.
That's what I think.
Wrong.
It is continuing.
Yeah.
So,
State,
yeah.
State.
I mean, unfortunately, I'm just saying Puerto Rico, I'm really sorry. And Hawaii, I'm really sorry. And American Samoa, I'm sorry. But you're over water.
What about boats?
I will do a boat. I will do a boat. I have no problem with boats for some odd reason.
Puerto Rico's back in the mix then, because that's not even a long boat ride.
Okay, sweet. Then let's go. What's stopping us? Okay, my answer is probably what's stopping us. I would actually say the Hull House in Chicago. Jane Addams. I do really want to see it. We've actually had a couple of times where we almost went, and then we just didn't. But one of the many buildings that was Hull House is a museum. And I would really, really much like to go see that near Chicago. So that'd be mine.
After our first episode, when you guys were speaking in such glowing terms about Seneca Falls, that's definitely at the top of my list
Love
these
it.
days.
Go it. It's so
Sounds
good.
amazing.
And if you go during the summer when it's warm, the Finger Lakes right there, you can go swim.
Yeah.
Right.
It's right
It's
Complete
really
trip.
pretty. Yeah.
It's all really close to Niagara Falls.
Yep.
Up there too.
We've
Sounds
only
like
done
an
Niagara
awesome-
Falls in the wintertime,
It's
Yes.
beautiful when it's frozen.
when it's terribly cold.
It's
They
also
didn't
really
have
cold.
The Maid of the Mist going though in the winter.
Correct.
No, they shut
Yeah.
and actually, the one cool thing, here's another one cool thing.
Another one.
About
it's like
going
a
in the
bonus.
wintertime, the parking lots are free to park.
And
Because
empty.
They know you have to be kind of dumb to be there when everything's frozen.
Uh-oh. Josh, what's yours?
Mine, well, I was going to go with the Arthur and Elizabeth Schlesinger Library,
Oh, were you?
but it's closed right now.
It is. It's closed for like a year.
Yeah, so...
It is
and
part of Harvard, though.
It is. So, because that is kind of partly an inspiration for the Women's History Library that you're starting.
Absolutely.
So I thought that'd be cool. But since it's closed, and I'll go someplace closer here in Indiana, and it's kind of something that will probably wrap into a trip when we go to Hull House, is the Radium Girls Monument in
yeah.
Illinois.
Yes. Bonnie, have you gone there?
No.
All right. See, there you go. Bonnie, Katie, have you gone there? All right. We're going.
Boom.
Girls trip,
Let's
including
do it.
Josh.
Let's do it.
Gal pals.
Gal Pal trip. Sweet.
Yeah, it's in Ottawa, Illinois.
Okay.
And it's called Remembering the Radium Girls, and it's a little statue there. I don't think there's a whole ton of stuff there, so I don't think it's like a solo destination. But, you know, if you're heading to Chicago...
Yeah, and it's an interesting story. about the radium
most
girls. I mean,
definitely
it's tragic story. It's not
Yeah.
happy joy story of how the girls with the radiums were doing the watches and then getting all the cancers and everything.
Makes my
But
teeth hurt.
it really does. It does. It makes it makes everything hurt. Yeah, exactly.
There is a lot of scary stories about radiation in the early days.
We didn't
and
understand
not
what it
knowing- Yeah,
was.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
from where they had the plateware that had that was radioactive, and look this up if you're listening out there in the world. X-rays as acne treatment.
Oh,
Ooh.
oh no.
Yeah, This American Life. Ira Glass talked about his. I think it was his grandmother had it done,
Oh my goodness.
and the effects are devastating.
One would think.
Yeah.
But we didn't know. And now we know.
They straight up sold radium water at one point, didn't they?
Yes,
my
they sold radium water as a health tonic.
Well, I mean, the health tonic was also, what was it? Morphine, it was cocaine, cannabis, and just all the alcohol in the world was, you know what I mean? Like, take this, you'll feel better tomorrow, or you'll be dead. One of the two.
You know, what is it going to be 100 years from now that we're currently consuming at a rapid rate?
Diet Coke.
Yeah, that's going to be the one.
Pretty much every
They didn't know what they were doing.
Every food
Right,
product.
exactly. Why didn't they know better? The answer is we did. We did it anyway.
Every food product we consume now will be considered toxic sludge, I'm sure. Besides maybe
already.
vegetables.
I'm also going to go with Spam is a possible candidate. Meat and cans
Love Spam.
might be a what were they thinking?
This is a unique intro to my one cool thing.
Is it?
Does it have to do with Spam?
Does it tie right into your one, two, three?
No, I
one
just
cool thing?
meant we've interestingly gone way off topic.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Like we do.
so I'm ready to bring it around town.
Do it.
I am. I'm going to do it right now. My one cool thing I'm going to talk about, I completely stumbled across by accident when I was doing research for what I was originally going to talk about, the women's groups. But I was just looking at women's history in general, and an article popped up from the Indianapolis Star from 2014. And I was blown away because it says that Indiana has a women's history trail.
What?
You
Really?
knew?
I think I actually saw that article like literally today.
Today.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's-
actually had no
it's
idea.
from 2014 too.
Yeah.
Mike, and we are actively looking for this sort of thing all the time.
Correct. And
Sweet.
every year March comes around and it's Women's History Month. And I think there were 2 different articles about women's history in Indiana over the last 10 years from the Indianapolis Star. Well, okay, that I saw on my Google search.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah, there
let
you
me,
go.
Let me be honest here. I didn't do some in-depth decade scan. Just what I was able to see.
It's fair. You
So
can
I-
only know what you know.
But I can make up what I don't know.
Correct. Wait, hold on.
Wait, this is all factual, guys. But I was blown away by this, so I wanted to research more. Of course, I read the article about the amazing women that are on these. What it is it's plaques, like trail plaques,
Oh, okay.
with a brief little synopsis, maybe a little engraved creepy photo.
Okay. Well, you
Maybe.
got to have your creepy photo.
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, it's a gift.
You need that ghostly silhouette in the gold on. Yeah. Anyway. So I wanted to get a little more in depth with this. I'm like, where can you find the information of where is this trail? Maybe Bonnie has it up right now. I don't know. But I couldn't find it.
Ah.
I think it's part of the cultural trail, or they're just kind of all throughout Indianapolis. I think the plaques are just kind of around.
Well, the article said there's over 20 of them, and they're all around the state. So I really felt like I should be able to find like a comprehensive list of where all these are. The closest I got was an Indiana government site about placards. That was like, you can look like, do you want placards about this subject, that subject? And there is like a byline women that you can click on.
Oh. Thanks.
But I think it had a little more beyond that.
Gotcha.
So, and I really dug deep. I feel like this could have been a moment where I had the photos and the string tying them together on the wall.
Yes. Tell me, like the red yarn
Right.
going around the pin. Yes.
Because it said that this trail was supported by the Indiana Women's History Association. So I was
Oh.
like, awesome.
Cool.
It said you can nominate and help raise the money for the marker and get a marker placed.
Oh.
I'm like, this sounds amazing. But when I went to Google that association, I didn't get any hits.
I cannot find them
That's
on the internet. At
That was
all.
one you were trying to find. I remember that. Yeah.
I found them related to, there was a Women Artworks Indiana thing like last year. I looked it up just the other day. They're not doing it this year.
Oh, okay.
But it said with like the women's history. So I was like, so I
Right.
gave like a number to contact if you have questions.
You like I have
about
questions.
like this project, but I was
Who
like,
are
I got
you?
questions.
Where are you?
And it went to like that Indiana, like the historical society thing that's off of the canal.
yeah.
And the lady at the front desk was like, yeah, I'll give you your number. It went to like, I think her home phone number. So I don't know. Like I haven't found like a Facebook group or a website for them, but I
Right.
left her like 2 or 3 messages. And it was like, hey, I'm
What
an
you
artist.
doing?
I do women's history. We should team up and do a thing.
Yeah.
I never heard back from them.
It really made me
Interesting.
wonder if it doesn't exist anymore.
I don't know, but
was
I met,
what I wondered.
was thinking I met someone, I think when I was talking to Sheila one day, some
Mm-hmm.
lady said like, she knows a lady that's in the thing.
Oh.
Like, so it's just like, just out of
Is it like a
reach.
secret society? Is it like the
Apparently.
Masons for women?
It's like Fight
the
Club.
It's like Fight Club. Oh, okay.
And you're
No.
not allowed to talk about it. So
Sweet.
that's why no one knows
Okay.
about it.
All right. We got to figure out the secret password or find Meatloaf apparently, and
Well,
then get in.
I fell down this rabbit hole one night and was up till like 4:30 in the morning
Yes,
about Indiana historical markers.
that's right. You were.
And
I was busy sleeping.
there are some in it, you can go to the Indiana Historical Bureau website and they have stuff about historical markers. And there's one off Capitol Street that's the Indiana Federation of Colored Women's Clubs.
Okay. Cool.
There's also, I mean, they have it by county, and there are quite a few different women's markers that are historical markers.
But you have to kind of like dig through
but-
it
Yeah.
and like placard
It's
by
not
placard.
like I want to plan myself a day trip. Let me print out this list and hit it all
Right,
up. That doesn't
Right.
seem to exist. So I want to say this was an aha moment, especially after I read through some of these placards and the women that they were featured, because it did emphasize my original topic idea, which is the women's groups. A lot of the women on these placards were part of them, and they were working for social change. So suddenly a light bulb comes on in my head. It's a very empty attic up there. But I thought, I feel like there's an energy around of more women's groups joining for either political purposes, for rights purposes, and then our purpose of spreading history.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, you know, we're a group of women who have come together and we've seen this need. There needs to be a women's history library so we can find these books and articles before they disappear.
Yeah.
There needs to be women's groups that are preserving history so you can go on an easy website and find a day trip to go back in history and appreciate these women. So
Yeah.
it was interesting. It was enlightening. So it was a little
Yeah.
frustrating, but it really, I think, fell in and defined our purpose too.
Yeah.
But since it's Women's History Month, and I think we owe it to all the women out there to get their stories out, I'm going to cover a few women from Indiana history.
Sweet. Yes. Get on it.
I know. And I was blown away by these women. The first one I'm going to talk about is Catherine Merrill. Have you guys ever heard of her?
No.
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 Bring it.
You're not going to believe this. In 1869, she became the second female college faculty member in the nation.
Really?
Can you believe that date?
In Indiana too?
In
1869?
Indiana. Yes.
Ah, goodness.
So she became a professor at what is now Butler University.
Oh, okay.
It was called something different back then. The reason it kind of came about is the president of the university, his daughter died, and he wanted to endow a chair that would only be filled by a female professor.
Ooh. Oh, that's
So-
a very
and
nice
she-
tribute.
I know, and
Aw.
she was such an amazing, strong candidate for that because her family had a high value on education and she had a passion for learning. She went in her early 20s abroad
Sweet.
to study. And from my reading, I found that it's common for women to go abroad at that age, women with means too, but more uncommon for them to study. So she
Oh,
studied
gotcha.
literature in Germany.
Oh,
Is
hey.
what she did when she was abroad for several years.
Oh, neat.
Yes.
I remember Jane Addams went abroad and got kind of the idea of the settlement houses from the English over there. But yeah, she didn't study over there. She just kind of like, what are you working on? This looks fun. I could build this in Chicago.
Right. Right. My next one is Zerelda G. Wallace. Oh, Bonnie's nodding.
Okay, it sounds slightly familiar, but I couldn't tell you what she did.
We're a little bit closer, right? Well, her husband was Indiana governor from 1837 to 1840. So while he was busy being governor, she was also being super political. She let me see. Okay. In 1875, she presented more than 21,050 signatures in support of women's rights to vote in front of the Indiana General Assembly. That was hard.
Nice.
She also appeared in 1880 before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee arguing for women's voting rights.
Yay!
I loved reading that because I find the women that were featured in Bonnie's hero stories, they're like the rock stars. And they're inspiring and awesome and out there. But I really loved hearing about somebody from my own state that grew up.
They're like the foot
Here,
soldiers.
right.
Yeah, they're like inspired by the big rock stars, but they're doing the
it
work.
right here.
Yeah, state by state. Yeah.
Because sometimes it can be hard, I think, to feel like you're having an imprint and a difference, especially right here in the middle of the Midwest.
Yeah.
We don't have all the biggest things going on, but it's super cool to know that the women here were fighting for those same things that our larger than life characters were
Exactly.
on the East Coast.
And a lot of times there are interesting things going on here. Just especially we've seen it a lot in Indiana. Indiana just doesn't publicize it well enough, or you see it a lot with festivals and stuff downtown and things. It seems like everything's going on all at the same time. So it's either there's nothing that you hear about's going on, or everything all at the same time, so you can't hit quite all of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, they don't publicize that kind of stuff a lot. I got a message on Instagram from a guy when I posted some pictures that I'd taken when I went up north. Francis Slocum. When I went
There
to
you
the
go.
Francis Slocum Forest and to her gravesite and stuff. And the guy that I'll give him a shout out here, George Kukuris. I'm sure I'm slaughtering his name. He's an artist, and he has a pretty cool looking Instagram page. And he asked if we had a list, if Gal's Guide had a list of women's history places to go to in Indiana so he could take his daughters, because he is a single dad. So I'm like, we don't have a list, but we do have our travel page.
Yeah, we're always working on it and adding it
and
page
we're
by
adding
page.
to it. And I keep meaning I need to sit down and do something about Francis Slocum and post some of the pictures and stuff as a little travel log. And when I was sitting down till 4:30 in the morning going through all those signs, a lot of them are women's history related.
Nice.
And so
It's got to be looking for them specific.
as I'm out I've got them marked on Google Maps.
See?
I've got them pinned. And as I'm out and
He's
about, I'm going to
organized.
be out there trying to get pictures of them
Foot soldiers.
so that we can publicize them a little better
Yeah.
and get places for people to go and see these things. And
See?
And beyond that, we need them to have a page they can look at that has more information.
Yeah.
Because I looked at all of these placards, trail signs, and, they're 5 sentences long.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
these women, all of these incredible women, did way more than 5 sentences worth
Right.
of things. They were, activists, writers, trying to think of all the others. They all had
They were usually multiple
talents.
things. Yeah. As women do. and
know.
should.
And as you look at some of those, the entries for some of those signs, some of them don't even exist anymore. They're gone. They were removed and
Not put back up.
yeah, or ran over by a car or something and then not replaced. So,
Right.
and unfortunately, it's even some of that limitedness is gone.
Yeah. But Katie, you have more amazing Indiana women.
Do you have more
Bring it on.
amazing?
The little fact that I always remember about Zerelda is she held suffrage meetings in her house.
Ah.
That's the little tidbit I always remember about her. And she's her photo, she's got big old poofy cheeks.
Oh, what?
My next lady I'm going to talk about is Lillian Thomas Fox.
Ah.
Does that name ring a bell for anybody?
No.
Okay. So in 1904, she was the first African-American woman to be employed as a journalist with the Indianapolis News.
Really? We have Journalism Month coming up for Gal's Guide.
She's got it. She's got to be a part of it.
Fantastic.
So she had previously written extensively for the Indianapolis, I forget the name of the newspaper, but it was a newspaper for African Americans. And then she was asked to start contributing to the Indianapolis News. So she was the first African American woman to write for a newspaper in Indiana.
Sweet.
So she wrote a little column in it about social things that were happening in gatherings, but then also things that were political and more of the social activism, because she was also a really impressive speaker.
Oh, cool.
So she really joined the social movements, spent a lot of time talking about health and sanitation and, you know, all the things you kind of needed to get a little improved in those early 1900s.
Right, exactly. Move us forward a little bit out of the Dark Ages.
Right. So actually, she helped open Oak Hill Camp with one of her women's groups, and it was the first outdoor fresh air camp for patients with tuberculosis in the entire country.
It was the 1920s disease. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I watched a lot of old movies where, you know, they get that little cough. And then there's that little bit of blood on the handkerchief, and you're like, oh, you got the tuberculosis.
Actually, there's another lady on this list that opened an open-air classroom for people with tuberculosis. So us ladies, we were really helping
the
people with the tuberculosis.
Exactly. Well, it killed a lot more of us than it seemed to of anybody else.
Gotta take care of ourselves, huh?
Exactly.
Yes. So, the next lady I wanted to feature is Mary Cable. No,
slightly. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to, but I can't remember what she did.
She also helped.
Yeah.
African American children with tuberculosis.
Oh, okay.
She was the other lady I was talking
Maybe there
about.
was like a huge tuberculosis epidemic happening in Indiana.
Well, that's a footnote of what she did, but she was an amazing educator. In 1893, she started her 4-decade-long career as an Indianapolis public school educator. She took the post of directing other practicing teachers and helped prepare over 60 African-American teachers like herself to enter the classroom.
Oh, cool.
So she became the teacher's teacher. And she was also instrumental in starting the local chapter of the NAACP. Yeah.
Nice. Perfect.
I know.
Yay!
So she was all about contributing and helping her community. So there's a placard here in Indianapolis for her. The next one I want to talk about is, I'm trying to pick my order.
You don't want to group those tuberculosis ones too close together.
I did them back to back. It's very anticlimactic.
You're good. You're good.
Yes. Luella Smith McWhirter.
Oh, all right.
I think it's cool because she married this real estate mogul.
Mm-hmm. Like you do.
Like you do, back in the early 1900s. And he founded the People's Bank and Trust Company.
Okay.
So then his wife served on the original board of directors for the company, which was the first time in this state a woman had served on a board of directors.
I was going to say, it's pretty rare.
For a bank, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
She was also president of the Indiana Women's Temperance Union and the Indiana Council of Legislative Women, which campaigned for women's suffrage.
Oh, cool.
So really, a lot of the ladies on this list helped campaign for suffrage.
Right.
They're Indiana heroes.
Look at that.
I know.
They weren't like that Tennessee being the last state, you know, just waiting it out.
No. We're on it.
Wonder what number we were.
We were like 20.
20th?
Okay.
Okay.
Something like that.
Gotcha. All right. So not first, not last-ish.
No.
So, okay. All right. Good. Interesting.
Have any of you ever heard of Lavinia McCarthy Straightwright?
No.
I really got that wrong, I'm certain. But she had one of the most amazing facts I read, and it's a silly one, but you know that's what grabs my attention.
Yes.
Go for it.
So she, along with her husband Abel, her husband was the commander of the 51st Indiana Voluntary Infantry.
Oh, okay.
And so when her husband went to fight in the Civil War, she came along with their 5-year-old son.
She went to the Civil War, like, to the camps with him?
Yeah, she just
Like you do.
packed up and came to war with him with their 5-year-old.
Strap that baby to your back and go.
Not
Yeah.
my first thought. Cool.
Yep. So she nursed the wounded during the war, which earned her the title of Mother of the 51st.
Oh.
Yep. I love this one. This woman just seems like she's probably hard as nails. She was captured 3 times by Confederate troops.
Oh, my gosh.
After the war, the couple returned to Indiana, and this is what really got my attention. When Abel died in 1892, Lavinia buried him in her front yard, much to the neighbors' dismay.
You know, girl was kidnapped a couple of times and went to the battlefields with, you know, her child. I think she gets to do this.
But I mean, people buried like their dog or their cat in their yard. They
It's a
usually
little
don't
different when it's your husband.
bury their husbands or their other loved ones in the front yard.
So he.
Oh, you're saying I'm not allowed to do that with you? Is this a okay? All right, note to self.
Health codes there.
At this point, yes, yes.
Frowned upon by the neighborhood association.
Well, I mean, I know our neighbors would be very upset with me.
But I mean, you're just a tough woman making your way through this world.
You don't got time. We go to a cemetery.
Although
Come on,
we
front
do have
yard's
a neighbor.
available.
We do have a neighbor that may have spouses buried in his yard. But
Oh, that's for another show.
But her placard is actually at her house, the former location of her
cool.
house or where she used to live. So if you want to go there and imagine that
He's right
he's
there by the
buried-
side.
he is not anymore. He's been
Aw.
dug up and buried in Crown Hill Cemetery.
Oh, okay.
Boo.
Actually, a good majority of the women on this list are buried in Crown Hill Cemetery, so that could be an interesting little trip too to go
Absolutely.
pay tribute.
I do love me a good cemetery, and Crown Hill is it's really gorgeous. I'm one of those. I love cemeteries because there's so much history there, and it's it's names and dates, but then it's also kind of that paying homage or homage or sorry, I like saying both homage.
I just can't get over she got captured 3 times. I'm like, what?
Right?
Was they just like really like her or her
Right?
company? Like, did she sing them songs? Or like, did she keep just wandering off? Like, what?
Yeah.
3 times.
Exactly. There's a story there for
Yeah.
sure.
And a handful of the ladies on my list also published works. So there
maybe
were
there's
quite a few of them that were nurses during the Civil War that went to help. And I can't remember which lady now because I expanded upon this. I went and Googled these ladies too to see what I could find. A few of them had Wikipedia pages,
Right.
but not every single one of them. And one of them was kind of the poet of Indiana.
Oh.
And she wrote about the wartime experience.
Oh, neat.
So,
Interesting. Especially if she was anywhere near the 51st or, you know what I mean? It was a big war. So it doesn't mean they're right next to each other.
Oh, yeah. Sarah Bolton.
Yes.
Yeah. She published a lot of poetry. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, there are a lot of. I think what happens kind of in the 19th and even somewhat early 20th centuries, since women weren't allowed in the military, they weren't allowed to fight, and a lot of women felt compelled to protect their country in one way or another. So, yeah, a lot of them went into the nursing corps, and I think that was kind of the way, because they want. I mean, like anybody, you see something bad going on, you want to help. And that was the one easy way that they were allowed to help and really make a big difference. And so I think
It's why Clara Barton, she's
Yeah.
credited with starting with the American Red Cross. She was a teacher, and when the Civil War broke out, it was a lot of her students. And so she was really worried about her students, so she went to the front lines to make sure that they were okay. And then she became the lady in charge on the front lines in her particular area too. You know what I mean? Taking in the injured and dying and things like that. So sometimes it's just a call to help. It's just like, hey, got no medical training, but I can make sure people are okay. I can, get relief. I can talk to my local women's club and get bandages.
Right. We did a lot of that.
Yeah.
Also, another great drunk history episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
More
Very fun.
bandages. Oh, wait, no. Now I'm thinking of Phoebe Buffet in the Friends episode when she sang the More Bandages. I'd combine the two. But yes, the drunk history on Claire Martin
It's
is.
got one of my favorite. I can never remember her name. Oh, the young black lady when she does that. She does the Clara Barton one.
Does she? I can't remember.
The lady who
who the
has
actress
trouble
was.
saying spectacles in the Colvette Colvin one. Spectacled.
Cold. I
Well,
love
when I was
it.
looking at all of the monuments on the website, the placards, not monuments, same difference, right?
The monuments are coming.
We'll get on that next.
Exactly.
When I was looking at the placards, there was one in New Albany that's for, I cannot remember her name because it's not on my list right here, but for an African-American woman who was fleeing the South
Mhm.
to gain her freedom and met up with one of the Northern Civil War troops and stayed on for 2 or 3 years nursing them.
Oh, wow.
So she ended up settling in New Albany, and a few years later, several years later, they came up with kind of a bill for pension for people that served in the Civil War.
Right, yeah.
And it was not offered to her. She
Yeah.
wasn't, they didn't have records of her official service, so they didn't need to get her pension.
Mhm.
So she went to the infantry that she was with and got the signatures of every single person that served, saying she
Ah.
nursed them, she did her job, she worked for all that time, and petitioned Congress and won her case and got her pension. So
Very nice.
I thought that was pretty badass.
I think Harriet Tubman had to fight for a pension as well.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
There's one lady from the Civil War who she got awarded her pension, but they only paid her in booze.
Oh.
But there was like a weird loophole where she was living, you weren't allowed to give women booze, so they didn't give her her pension. Like,
Sure. Nobody ever pays me in booze.
yeah, it was like you would get like a barrel of booze a month or whatever. Like it was.
I'm cool with this. I mean, I don't even need to pick.
I mean, I guess if you were trying to start a bar, I mean,
Yeah.
Sure. Or
free
just
supplies.
I'm just saying, Oh, fun.
But yeah, I saw that Indy Star article about the Indiana Women's History Trail, and that does seem like it seemed like it was spread out like over the whole state. So it'd be neat to come
region
up
it,
with, yeah,
like
to
this
regionalize
area?
it and
What you could hit in a day or
and
something
do like
like
Crown
that.
Hill Cemetery, do like the walking trail, do
Right.
it something where you could get out and walk it, and
I know New York has one that's about Central Park.
yeah,
Like, what are the historical markers that are relating around women that you could walk to that are around this, that
Yeah.
area?
Yeah.
That would be really cool for Indiana.
yeah, I think that'd be
Indianapolis,
fun. And
yeah.
even if it wasn't plaques or anything like that, at least if it was on a website and it had, okay, at the corner of this and this happened, this house was this, and it was something walking, because it's different when you're reading this stuff about people on a page. After a while, it can kind of gloss over, where if you're walking it, living it, and being part of it, it really does kind of bring the history to life.
Yeah, it
and
does.
it makes it a lot more interesting than just names and dates and figures and
Yeah.
blah.
Exactly.
Well, that wraps it up for this week. Join us next week as our next gal pal shares her one cool thing as Women's History Month continues on Gal's Guide to the Galaxy podcast.
For show notes, links, and images from this week's show, visit galsguide.org. Want exclusive stuff like deleted bits and major bloopers? Become a Gals Guide patron today. Thanks for listening.